You got me in trouble so much the first time that I interviewed you that I came back for more. Do you remember?
What?
We did the interview. We did an interview for Malibu Monthly. Let me go back. We did the interview for a magazine here in Malibu, and we, I think we were talking about how, I think your wife Lauren was gently pushing me to try the fish. And I, politely declined. At that point, I was still eating chicken. Now I don't eat any meat at all, but at that time I was still eating chicken. Mm-hmm. So I was sticking with my chicken, and she was pushing the fish on me. And she wanted to know my reasons, which I like it when people try to, get to the bottom. It felt like therapy a little bit. Mm-hmm. But my reasons were that, fish, I don't like the smell of it, basically. Mm-hmm. I grew up on Lake Michigan, and I smelled too many dead fish on the shore. And you made a quip, as you do. You made a quip that dead chickens smell too. Well, the problem is I included that in the story, and it was kind of a restaurant review / interview with Tony Dow.
Hey, Lauren.
Sorry. Are you on a what do you call it?
A recording device?
No, a time frame.
A time frame?
I'm sorry.
I'm fine. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, we're recording, but we aren't anymore because we've got some McGee.
Well, the point is,
he's got this to use on you now.
No, he just finished cutting down a big tree. I asked him, I guess he came up here earlier, but you were busy. For $40, and he's the kind of guy who'd probably be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah, he'll probably smash on you.
No, he said I won't hurt anything.
Yeah, so you said dead chickens smell too. And I put that in the article, and then I got a phone call from the editor after it was published, screaming at me, saying, how dare you put a quote like that in a restaurant review. What was funny is you weren't talking about the actual food, but what's even better is that she's the editor, so you'd think she would have seen a little line like that. The fact of the matter is she tried to put it on me like, I trusted your writing and everything that you sent to us. But I think what it was is like she had read it and no red flags went up to her. It's when the restaurant called her and said, we don't like that and we're going to pull our sponsorship.
I remember that. That was down at that.
I said we were banned.
From Allegria? Or Allegrio?
Allegrio? But then shortly thereafter they closed down. Hey, Tony, do you have $10?
Go back in my...
Huh?
And go back in my closet.
Okay.
Just give her your credit card number right now. I'm sitting here in your living room with Tony Dow, who once planted a chip in someone's brain, right? To tell him what to eat.
What?
I believe that you and Ronald Reagan and...
yeah, that story. Crazy guy, yeah. He told his psychiatrist that Ronald Reagan, Bruce Henderson, and Tony Dow had put a chip in his brain, and he was going to kill all three of us. Well, the psychiatrist is bound then by to tell law enforcement about it. So,
yeah, sure.
So they told law enforcement about it, and then they had to tell me about it. And but I just thought it was funny. Ronald Reagan, Bruce Henderson, and Tony Dow. What's wrong with that picture?
It's three icons of conservative America.
Yeah, but I'm not conservative.
But you're associated with a pretty white bread show. I sort of see the link, but you're right. They didn't take into factor that was a fictional character.
Yeah, right. I never, until right this second, made it the connection the way you just did.
I sort of see it because, I think that. Right. It was like an all-American sort of vibe he was doing.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe it made more sense. Maybe he wasn't quite as crazy as he...
I didn't think he was thinking about Topanga Canyon Tony Dow, sculptor Tony Dow. I think he was thinking about you still had
Cleaver,
super high dark hair.
The all-time big brother. Right.
That's right. He was the all-time big brother. Let's just get through some obligatory Leave It To Beaver questions. I'm going to, hopefully we won't have the exact same conversation you've had 1,000 times. I just said that to Christopher Knight, and he's like, good luck. And then we had a 2-hour conversation. At the end, he was like, that was a little different. We got into, the psychology of sitcom, like what the public needs from from people that they
Don't ask me those questions. I have no idea.
You know what? You're good for the quip. I noticed in listening to our old interview today, which was 9 years ago. You're good with the quip.
Now you're putting the pressure on me. There, come on.
I'm trying to lay it on thick. Like there's a lot of expectation for this conversation. What I'm interested about is obviously the first thing is that Leave It To Beaver is this epitome of the 50s, this iconic 50s thing, yet it went from 57 to 63. So half your run bled into the 60s. And which I don't think that people, the 60s, we start to think that TV was in color. We start to think, in the later 60s, you think hippies. What people really think of the 60s now is, Mad Men has put 1960 and 1961 and 62 on the map, and we're all picturing Madison Avenue 1960 cocktails and dinner jackets over lunch. But it's funny. Yeah, it's just funny to think that the second half of Leave It To Beaver was going on in the Mad Men era.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've always thought of it. The 50s are a real fun decade. People really, as you said, the 60s kind of people think in terms of the hippies and the music and
the culture changing.
And, that whole thing.
But what was fun about the 50s? I mean, from your perspective?
Well,
other than that, you were on a hit TV show and you had a backlot as your playground.
Well, that stuff was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I was asked to go speak at a high school in Catalina, where I sort of was raised in the summers. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to talk about the 50s and the 60s, and I said, okay, sure. So then I came back and I said, wait a second, I don't know anything about the 50s. I was working all that time. I don't know what, I wasn't part of the hippie movement. I didn't smoke grass, and probably till I was in my 20s somewhere. And it's like I don't really know what it was like, except that it was the golden age of television, I believe.
Yes.
The 50s had, the Playhouse 90s, the Studio Ones, the really quality television that for some reason they won't do now. Because I was trying to pitch a show, a live show.
Yeah.
It's never going to be live, but, a tape show that doesn't stop, that was done like Playhouse 90.
Right.
And try to get, really good writers, because that's what made that show so amazing, and really good directors, and really good actors, of course. And nobody seems interested in that. Mm-hmm. Everything's sort of like real quick attention span at in the 2000s here.
So this morning I was watching a clip of you on the YouTube, which didn't even exist last time we talked. I just realized YouTube has only been with us since 2005, which is shocking, because it feels like it's been around for at least 20 years. But I watched you on Emergency, which I bet was the 70s, and I couldn't believe the pacing, how long they spent simply trying to lift you out of a canyon and get you into a truck. I mean, the establishing shot, and then the medium shot, and then, very little dialogue. Just, it was a different, I can't imagine a show like ER, which is over. I can't imagine a show like ER, or even a much more modern reference. Anything today, the pacing, they never would have allotted 4 minutes of screen time to slowly get a guy into a truck.
Well, I don't remember that, but I'm not sure that Emergency was one of the epitomes of television. I think that.
Well, maybe, but you know what I'm saying. Like the pacing was different until
that's slow pacing for productions, I guess, for production reasons. I think that slow pacing is one of the things that's really missing.
Yeah, agreed.
In the 70s, which I think it's a golden decade of feature films, there were all these films that took all this time to establish the characters, and so we really understood, who was who and why they were doing what they were doing. And
right.
It made the content so much more, it intensified the content and the relationship. So
true, yeah.
I don't mind the slowness. I actually get a little frustrated with the speed. Although I love all the new technologies, and I love new films, and I love the everything about it. People say, well, why isn't television as good as it used to be? I say, well, it's a hell of a lot better. I mean,
television is great right now. I mean, television is a stronger medium for storytelling than features at this point.
Well, especially with HBO and Showtime, and
right.
There's 9 million different outlets for films. A&E does films, Bravo does
AMC,
AMC.
Yeah.
So there's and those are much more character oriented, usually, even Lifetime. Television, I think, is great. What people are talking about is the reality shows that they are obligated to watch because everybody gets addicted to those stupid shows.
Right.
Or, the talent shows or the Survivor shows or whatever. I guess that is a reality show. You can never really think of it as a reality show because it's all pre-set up. I mean, I don't know how they do it. I've never known. But
how they do like a Survivor?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to...
It's fully produced, most of these shows.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like there's what's called TV timeout, which is the performers, the contestants or participants actually sit around, much like an actor would sit in a trailer, waiting for a scene to be reset and relit. Yeah. Now, there's varying degrees of how much production. There are some shows that simply follow the action and almost like a documentary and get and tell the whole story in the editing.
Well, the police guys, the police story, the first one that was Cops, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Maybe, that was clearly, just following the police guys.
Absolutely, right.
And that I found to be fairly interesting. But I don't know why people want to sit there and be fooled. I mean, they're clearly trying to say that this is an event that's happening and we're just photographing it. Well, like you say, I'm sure that the only thing that's spontaneous is probably some of the dialogue that these guys come up with.
Sure.
The characters.
Yeah, and that way they're not scripted. Like, they don't have an actual script that they're memorizing. Right. But whether the producer set up the scenarios for them to react to, that happens a lot.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, but outside of that group of shows, which, I do think are sort of dragging television down a little bit. HBO has done some of the best films you're ever going to want to see.
Of course, right.
And better than feature films now. Because feature films, they can't afford to merchandise a film unless they spend $100 million on it.
9 out of the top 10 films of last year were sequels.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, So that's a fun fact. So basically, unless you're ready to write a film that could franchise out to 4 or 5 films, there's no reason for them to greenlight it because they're really just looking for, and the movies like The Help and Bridesmaids and things like that are a complete anomaly.
Uh-huh.
But you see the way Hollywood is reacting to Kristen Wiig. She has stated publicly she really doesn't want to do Bridesmaids 2, and they're acting like she's a traitor and she's slapping the face of the industry. And they're acting as if, I read one commentator in Entertainment Weekly, they're acting as if they did her a favor by giving her a hit film, as opposed to she did the industry a favor by writing a film that made $200 million.
Yeah.
So it's a little disingenuous, the attitude towards it, but yes, that's the state.
Well, it's very tough on an extremely successful film to come up with a sequel that's going to be equal to it. I mean, most cases the sequels aren't.
Right.
Unless you're into the action films, and the only reason the action films do so well, or it sort of progress as the sequels go on, is they spend more money on each one. They spend $100 million on the first one, $150 million, and $175 million. Whatever they spend, I don't even keep track of that anymore. But it's you can do a lot with $150 million.
Sure
probably make a pretty good film.
I think I might be able to try to. I think I could find a way to spend at least the first 3,000 of the $150 million.
Yeah.
So Leave It to Beaver. What was interesting about it, with it, I think, to get back to the era that it was in, even though it truly is our representation, our pop culture representation of sort of that white bread America that still is connecting with people, still is a wish fulfillment show for kids around the world, and it seems like it always will be. There were a couple of moments of the real world intruding on the world of the Cleavers. You had alcoholism, you had divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Wally being a younger girl. I think people hearing that would say, "Really? I don't remember." I remember him falling into a cup of soup.
Yeah.
But
right.
But talk to me a little bit about how those snuck in.
Well, I think all the stories, certainly in the first year or two, were written by Joe Connelly and Bob Mosher, and they had a bunch of kids between them. And so they took most of the stories, if not all of them, from either their kids,
sure,
or from their kids' friends at school, or so. They were very real.
Yeah.
And it's like we didn't do shows on drugs because that wasn't really an issue at that particular time. But we did a show on alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't really a statement show. What we were
right.
was a show to show sort of the humor of growing up and being a parent and being a kid, and the things that we got into, the trouble that we got into, or that Jerry mainly got into, are the same kind of troubles that kids get into now.
Kids' issues are universal.
But, it's certainly moved forward. In other words, I remember Wally in, 3 or 4 episodes trying to figure out how to put his arm around a girl or touch a girl. Or,
right.
And, that happened, that was me, that's...
Right.
That's what was going on in my life. And so it is a representation of the 50s, certainly, in the times that we lived in back then. I think it was an accurate representation. A lot of people say, well, but it's a white bread, idealized life.
Yeah.
Well, you can do a movie about people that are doing really well, or you can do a movie about people that are having trouble in life, or so basically this was a show about people, middle class, people who lived in suburbia, who had good family values, good family life, and I'm sure there were a hell of a lot of people around the country that lived that way.
Yeah.
Our writers, I never saw Joe Connelly without a tie on. So
yeah.
When they say, well, but Ward always wore his tie to dinner, a lot of people did back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for us to fathom now.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a fairly accurate representation of a middle class, well-adjusted family of the 50s.
Wally never wore jeans. Did you wear jeans at the time?
No.
Were jeans considered like rebellious, almost like the Fonz, or I know that, but were jeans like a symbol of bad boy status?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they were. My mom never let me wear jeans, and then when I got on the show, he never wore jeans. Wally never wore jeans, and that's all I wear now. But,
so your swimsuits could be super short compared to swimsuits nowadays,
oh, yeah.
But the jeans were a symbol of rebellion, and I like that.
The guys used to wear their jeans, down around their crack in their ass, which is, I don't understand how some of these guys keep their pants. I'm sure the pants are sewn to the shirts because they're so low. They're on the
nowadays
the downslide. I don't know how they keep their pants on.
All right, so jeans, so good. We covered that. We got to see a toilet on Leave It To Beaver, which had never been done on TV, and continued. TV kept a couple decade ban on toilets, because I know in the 70s, the Brady Bunch, there was a no toilet between the boys and girls bathroom. They just had a bathroom that was just a sink.
Just a sink, yeah.
Just a sink. So somehow, because you guys needed to, in the first episode of Beaver, right?
Yeah, the Captain Jack, the very first episode we filmed, and I think it was the second episode that aired, boys got a alligator in the mail, and of course needed a place to keep it, and what better place to keep it away from their parents
Mm-hmm.
than in the toilet tank. So that was the gag. And of course, the censor said, "No, you can't do that. You can't show a toilet. You can't do this." And Joe and Bob went to bat and said it's an integral part of the scene. We're not showing the whole toilet, I don't think. I think it was only the top part of the tank.
Yeah.
So it's not exploitive. It's, So anyway, they allowed them to do it, which was good. But, back then, parents had to sleep in separate beds.
Right.
It had to be double.
In Lucy's case, even if they were actually married in real life, they were still split up by a nightstand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Didn't matter if they were married or not.
Ward and Jim were, they had twin beds and nightstand between them. And,
Wonder how they made you and the bees.
I don't know. Maybe they pushed them together. I don't know.
Pushed them together or got creative, I'd like to think.
Yeah.
I would love to picture actual life on the set, only because I think the very nature of the show being in black and white to me, it creates, it's hard for me to even picture that the set was in color.
I was just going to say, it makes you feel better that the set and the sound stages were in color. The studio was in color. And actually, even when I went home, it was in color.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to picture. I even look at pictures from my childhood in the 70s when I was born in 73. I look at those pictures and they all have that yellow brown, that maize, those terrible colors from that era.
Yeah.
But it's also the actual film of the pictures that maybe is deteriorated some. So there's that thing where I can't imagine life in the 70s being as full and crisp and colorful as life is right now. Because in my view, because I don't have many actual memories from the 70s, but when I look at the 7 years that I lived of it, I look at those pictures and I think, wow, the sun had a real brownish, ugly glow to it. The beach must have sucked then.
Well, they talked about doing the show in color, and it's not that I did a pilot before I did Leave It To Beaver, which was, I think, the first attempt at a series in color.
You did a pilot in color before 1957?
Mm-hmm. And
because we obviously know film had been in color since.
Yeah. So, it was available. It wasn't until Wagon Train or one of those shows changed from black and white to color that it really became viable to produce shows that way in color. The problem with our show, and doing it that way, is that the cameras in the films weren't very high speed. So, in other words, the film was rated, probably at 60 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly what it was, but anyway, so they needed lots of light, and depending on your cameraman, we had a cameraman, Ray Renahan, who did, I don't know, I think he shot stuff on Gone with the Wind, but he also did. He might have done Becky Sharp, which was the first, Technicolor film.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he did 2 or 3 shows, and man, it was almost impossible. You go in there and you stand there for 10 minutes, and you're just sweating because it's 90, 100 degrees because of
so many lights.
So much lights.
And this was the pilot you did before Beaver.
No, this was Beaver when we had a certain cameraman.
Oh, so they tested it. They tried to do.
No.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't missing that. Sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't very clear. I did this show ahead of Beaver.
Oh, gotcha.
That was in color.
Okay.
That we're done with that conversation.
Oh, except I have one question. Have you ever had access to it, or have you ever?
No, we've tried to.
I bet you'd love to see that.
Yeah. Now there's a show that was really I thought current in its ideas. The idea was it was a single father, wife had died, with a boy, with a son.
Right.
10, 11 in my case, years old. And he was a photographer, a nature photographer.
Mm-hmm.
But he was given these assignments, so we did 2 pilots. The first pilot was to get on an old square rig schooner and sail up towards Alaska and record the Japanese whale hunting.
Okay.
Because we felt that they were breaking the quota.
Right.
So
he said to me, and I said it to him, he goes, I run into you more than anybody else in my whole life. I see the guy like every week someplace else.
Yeah.
Synchronicity.
Lauren, would you like to come over and sit here for just a few minutes and interject?
Sure.
We're going to act like, oh, Lauren, your wife just came in the room. This is spontaneous and unexpected.
How about what happened with that tree? And I said, they'll be out of here in 5 minutes. I'm like, within 1 minute.
They were gone fast. You want to sit
tree.
here for a second? Sorry, we're sharing a mic, so. You showed up just in time because we were just going to talk about how your husband is a gay icon.
Oh, we know that. Somehow.
But it's the letters.
I don't think any gay women have ever said that to you.
How do you know?
Gay women? Lesbians?
Yeah.
Have never said about their crush on him?
Well, he does.
That kind of makes sense. They might have had a crush on Jim.
But he has, a lot of feminine aspects.
Huh?
Yeah, that's what I get. You're super feminine.
He's not like Mr. Macho. He's not Mr. Macho. But,
except he works with wood, although this is getting further into the gay conversation.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
So, his woodworking downtime. All right.
And as a matter of fact, that...
No, I'd like to hear it.
Also black.
Of all the other. Yes.
Also, how about the fact that he was the only Democrat? They were all Republicans. That's what they were sensing.
Wally was a Democrat?
That was probably...
Well, Tony is.
Well, yes, but did
no,
we know that from the show?
The whole cast were all, and probably, do you think Joe and Bob? So then you can ever talk politics with us.
He did what? Did he just... This is supposed to be very informal. This is not like a radio interview where, people are accustomed to, you don't even want to know what Christopher Knight talked about.
This is reality, internet.
It's reality internet, which it's fascinating for the listeners since they don't know what happened, that you just dripped some lemonade on your shirt. But you know what? We all do that, and it makes you human.
Yeah,
and for once, you're not sitting from your high, lofty Hollywood tower on Leave It To Beaver. You've become one of us.
Hear how quiet I am on this one?
Before I've asked you once if you were a fan of the show. You met him in '77, but had you grown up being a Leave It To Beaver fan?
Oh, sure.
Did you have a crush on him?
I don't think I had a crush the way everybody else seemed to.
Mm.
I think I was kind of immature, sort of babyish. I mean, like, I can remember...
You had a crush on...
going...
Ricky
Nelson. I really like Ricky Nelson.
She had said Frank Bank.
Oh.
Frank Bank played Lumpy on Leave It To Beaver for those listeners.
Anyway, no.
I'm getting the sense that you didn't. Okay.
All right. No, I haven't read his book, I guess, huh?
I have heard that he was he was
According to him,
he was the Wilt Chamberlain of sitcom.
10,000 women, or whatever it was.
Frank, I think you made it up. If Frank is listening...
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody could really believe that.
He was moving copies of the books. To sell these autobiographies, you have to have dated the person who played your mom on a TV show.
Did he say that?
No, but that was like Barry Williams with the Brady Bunch, and then there was rumors that for years you and Barbara Billingsley had dated. That's on the internet,
Hugh
according to
or you?
Cybernets.
Hugh? Did you say Hugh or you?
I would love to know that Hugh and Barbara went
I
out.
don't think so. She was she
were they married
Roy?
to other people at the time?
Yeah, I don't know
she
who
just,
she was.
she...
But certainly...
Roy had just died.
Yeah, Roy had just died.
The love of her life.
Oh, okay.
Roy, and he was married to Catherine.
Okay.
So
to picture life on the set, because I'd like your wife's input on this too, since she wasn't there. So now it's two outsiders trying to understand. I would like to picture... Now, Hugh, I get the impression, was one of those... There's so many of these TV dads that somehow got roped into a sitcom when they were serious actors, and they were straddled with the weight of a sitcom for 7 years of their life or whatever. But Hugh sounds to me like a pretty serious actor. That's my impression I've gotten. That maybe didn't love it.
He had done a ton of B movies. He was Michael Shayne, who was a detective,
mm-hmm.
And they did a series of films about Michael Shayne. And he was a Methodist minister,
Right.
and he had written a book, and so yeah, he was very serious. And we'd done the pilot with another we hadn't, but Barbara and Jerry had done the pilot with another father and another Wally.
That's right.
Have
And you weren't the
seen
original
them?
Wally. What? I
think
never
the
saw the
father
original.
was gay.
Was he? And do you think
He
that's
was
why they
very-
might have?
He was very effeminate. No, I mean, he was.
Yeah.
Well, you don't
He
know
wasn't
that.
strong. Ward was a
But that
strong
doesn't mean
man.
he's gay.
Well, you
There
know
are a lot of
what?
strong gay
No
guys.
matter what, he was not right for the part.
Okay.
So anyway, but yeah, Hugh, after the first couple of seasons, said, "I've had enough of this working with kids." But it's difficult because, when we did the second series in the 80s, we were the adults,
Yeah.
and then we had kids. And what happens is you shoot.
You said the same thing
You turned into your
about one
you turned into your
particular
fake
kid.
dad.
Oh no,
But he was a really.
no, what? I don't. You're on a different conversation than I am.
You're talking about the new Leave It To Beaver,
Yeah,
and
but
you
I'm
said
talking
that
about
Ward.
parents work. No, I'm talking about how difficult it is to work with kids because what happens is you shoot the master, you shoot the kids close-ups or coverage,
Right.
and then you go on to the next scene. You shoot the master, and then when 5 o'clock comes and the kids have to go home, then you go back and you shoot the adults close-ups.
Right.
So the adult is playing the scene with a script supervisor who may or may not be able to read lines, and
Some other adult on all fours trying to get to the height of the kids to make eye contact, and they're trying to act opposite that. Yeah.
in addition to working late, because obviously all that was done after.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was fed up with that, but I also think he was really just fed up with sort of being feeling second fiddle to a couple of kids.
Right. Right.
He really liked Tony a lot.
He did.
Yeah, we got along really
A
well.
lot.
So was there a lot of sitcoms, like, I guess they're so different because yours was filmed single camera and more like a film and less like a show in front of a live audience. I mean, it wasn't a show in front of a live audience. So did you have trailers? Did you obviously had to go to school in between scenes,
Mm-hmm.
but was there a lot of sitting around with Barbara and Hugh, or was it more like they were professional actors you worked opposite of?
That's what they were. They were professional actors that we worked opposite of. And, Hugh and I would occasionally have a conversation or something. And, yeah, there was a lot of waiting around. But, we shot one episode in 3 days, which, based on today's productions, usually, an hour takes 7 or 8 days.
But so rehearsal time, the way they do now, it would be just you'd rehearse before a scene and then do it.
Well,
You didn't have days of
We
rehearsal.
had one rehearsal day.
Okay.
So we'd read on Monday, we'd rehearse on Tuesday, and then the producers would watch a run-through
Okay.
of the show, and then do any rewriting they thought necessary, and then we'd shoot Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But still, that's a pretty tight schedule, especially the way things were shot in those days, because you shot a full master, which established all the people,
Yeah.
the set, and everything. Which, in today's world, if you're a director, you figure out, well, I'm going to use that shot maybe to establish the scene, but then, so you don't shoot the whole thing. So we'd shoot the whole scene in a master, and if somebody flubbed up or somebody didn't like something, we'd go back and do it again or
Mhm.
pick it up or whatever. So we would have a perfect master, 100%, and we'd shoot all the close-ups, 100%, shoot the 2 shots, 100%. So there were a lot of setups,
Were there any good hiding spots on the set, or
Of course, yeah.
what were some of what?
Well, I mean, there were closets to nowhere, and there were stairs to nowhere.
Right.
So
So the main staircase that you guys would come down and get your morning.
it would go up and
just
stop.
stop there. Yeah.
I don't remember so many hiding places on the set as I remember on the back lot at Universal, which, we would shoot on, a day every couple of weeks. And, that was like our backyard.
Yeah.
So we'd play hide and seek there. We'd play...
What were some of the good spots? Was there any other show or movie or identifying that we could picture?
The western towns were, always really
Doesn't
cool.
sound like fun.
It sounds great.
Oh, my God. I wish I could have done that.
Were you allowed to hop on the golf carts?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, a lot of people did that. They either had small motorcycle things or they had golf carts. No, they didn't give us any of that stuff. But the sets are so intricate in that they're a facade, and then behind them, they're all braced with the necessary construction to keep them standing. So there's all kinds of weird little nooks and crannies, and most of them have, if there's a second story on a saloon, for example,
Yeah.
That window would have a platform behind it. You'd be able to get up on the platform because at some point in time somebody might climb out of that window to jump on their horse or, might look out and do something.
Yeah.
So you had that, but and there were all those kind of things around where you'd have things built behind for certain reasons. And the Cleaver house, for example, was the restroom on the back lot. It was
Okay.
built
It
around
may
the-
still be.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
fine.
And,
I want to shake your hand because you just asked one of the best questions. I've never heard anybody in an interview with you ask that question about hiding spots.
what was it? Oh, hiding spot.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's been my goal. I told him from the
and-
beginning. I was like,
and
if I sit here and ask you every question you've had to answer a million times, I have failed.
Okay,
So,
and now let's cut to the new Leave It To Beaver, which was filmed at first at the Universal lot locally here.
right.
And we took Kip Marcus, who played Beaver's son, and Christopher, Tony's son, out for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But before dinner, we were playing hide and go seek.
Really?
And
That's
the
awesome.
security guard came along, and we got busted. And he kicked us off the lot.
You weren't able to use Wally
Remember,
Cleaver status
he
to
was
keep you
hiding. Kip was hiding under a flatbed truck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Did you get out of speeding tickets
Me?
because of your voice? Yes.
Oh, I did.
Your wife is saying yes.
You've gotten stopped. We've been stopped together with you driving maybe 3 times when...
Yeah, maybe
They-
3 times
yeah.
in my life, and I've gotten over 3 tickets, so it's not like it happens all the time.
Well, this is what frustrates me about the famous is that you don't even realize how privileged you're. Like you're saying, no, that's never happened, but it totally happens.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of perks for a lot of the newer, bigger stars, but for Tony
Like
Dow, I mean,
Lindsay Lohan.
what happened? Yeah,
If you ever need an ego stroke, you just go to one of those conventions, and for 2 days you get, fawned over and take your pictures with people.
He
That's
doesn't need ego stroking.
'Cause you do it?
hates that.
Oh.
No, Tony, if he could be anonymous
I don't
for the
have
rest of his life,
much of an ego.
he'd be really happy. Yeah, he doesn't have much of an ego.
And I can see you would love to be famous and be a star.
I would have as a kid. Yes, I have no inclination to act. Anytime I'm in one of my own projects, I don't want to see my face. I don't mind the back of the shoulder. It takes me out of it to see myself in something. But absolutely, I would have traded worlds with you when I was a kid. I mean, it would have been too late. Leave It To Beaver had wrapped a little while before I was born, but
Maybe, but it sounds to me like you had a pretty cool upbringing in Brazil and.
Brazil, yeah, that was good. I think I told you guys this. I don't know
Wait
if you
a
remember
minute.
this last time I saw
Brazil. Was
German.
your father a Nazi?
No, I'm afraid not. But I like that you put that together, Lauren. I sat there in school. I think I told you this last time we met, but I sat in school with a pen and wedged a gap between my 2 front teeth to look more like Beaver.
Oh, that is so sad.
That's really ridiculous.
That is really pathetic.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If I'd known imagine me in a world where if there had been the internet, like the research I would have done. I used to go and read, if I could find an old article on a sitcom from 30 years ago in the summer, this is where I was in the summer, in a library, on microfiche, that old stuff that you put under the thing and glided around. Well, to find some old New York Times review of some show that I loved, that was what I did with my summers. So I was very school was in the way of my career because I produced my first TV show when I was 14. So, on public access TV, but in my mind, it was my chance at like making a network TV show in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so I took it very seriously. I was not about to show up with a guitar and a chalkboard and do guitar lessons. My mind was like, I have access to TV cameras and it's going to be broadcast somewhere in the world. Just here in my little market on a channel nobody watches. But I mean, 3 truckloads of props, I would the producer and me had already kicked in, and I would manipulate. Fortunately, my dad was a pastor, so I was able to get like access to people who wanted to please him. And so, people would build sets for me. People would, loan me their trucks. I wasn't old enough to drive. I would have to be driven to the set of my first show that I executive produced. You got into acting through a swim coach or something. It was a total sort of
lifeguard, yeah.
Because you were a highly esteemed swimmer at the time.
Wow. Yeah, as esteemed you can be at 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's
but this guy was where I took my diving workouts once a week. He was a lifeguard there, and he was an actor, and we looked kind of alike. Now, this is a question that has been answered before. You sure you want to go ahead with it?
Not really.
I think I'm going to leave.
I think I already know the answer. I think, in short, you looked like him. He was an actor. He brought you in because you looked like him, and then you sort of got in the system that way. Right?
Yeah.
And then he got the role.
That was Johnny Wally.
Guess what I watched this morning? Ready for this?
Freddy's Nightmares.
I wrote it down. I watched your soap opera. Never Too Young. I watched this morning.
How was it?
I watched the episode that you were introduced on it, like your first episode where you kind of strolled in, and I related to it because your character lived in his VW bus, and not that long ago I attempted to live in my car at a low point. Not that we need to turn this into a tragic conversation, but it only lasted one night because it wasn't too successful. But as I was watching this morning, I was like, I get it. I know exactly what his character was going through.
Yeah,
and that's
except yours.
No, he was pretty cool.
He'd been doing it for
choice.
Yeah, by choice.
I mean, what better location? He's at the Malibu Pier,
right,
living on the ocean, and but he was an interesting character because what had happened is after the I don't know if it was after the Beaver Show, I did a bunch of guest starring things. But anyway, the producer calls me in, and he says, we're doing this show. It's called Never Too Young. It's about, high school, college kids at the beach.
It was unusual in that it was a soap opera, but it was targeted to teenagers.
Yeah. Most of it, because that's what destroyed it was the fact that the network, when they showed it out here, they showed it at like 4 o'clock or something like that. So it was after school.
Okay.
And it was one of the strongest hours that ABC had, where the action is, and Never Too Young. Well, in the Midwest and back east and whatnot, they had it on at 12:30. So all the letters coming in were from these avid soap opera people saying, "What are you doing with all these kids? What do more about the parents."
Right.
So they started to do more about the parents, and then, as usual, they sort of diffused the concept. And but it was really cool because a guy calls me in. He says, "We're doing the soap opera, and we have." I think he originally wanted me to play the character that was going to UCLA, and an athlete kind of guy. And
did it feel different than Wally to you? Like, did it feel like you were going to get to do something different and not be typecast?
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. So, but he said, "There's this is another character or whatnot." Maybe he gave me a sheet of paper that had the character. So I decided that Chet character was the most interesting to me because he lived in his bus. He had not gone to college. He was kind of a loner, and he was a mechanic, and he was, a really good mechanic.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I said, well, I like this guy, and he said, great. And so we were able to sort of develop the whole thing together.
You finally got to have your shirt open and show your abs. That's what you were excited about.
I have a feeling that was your favorite role.
Was it?
I don't know.
Because when you talk about it, you speak so fondly of it.
Well,
yeah, I can tell.
And we have a VW vest, and he wants to go
sleep in it
at the beach.
Well, maybe you guys could have a really terrible fight, and you could have an excuse to actually go sleep out in the VW.
No, don't say that.
You guys get along really well, don't you?
Does it seem that way?
You guys seem like...
We do.
Yeah, it seems... Anytime that you bicker over things like removal of trees in the front yard, it seems very, very, very lighthearted.
It's very silly.
Nothing terribly tragic. Yeah, as soon as I leave, as soon as that mic goes off, it's just going to be hell for that palm tree. So never too young. And then, so your transition to doing guest star roles after Beaver. First of all, were you wealthier than God? I mean, were you just?
Are you kidding?
You guys made $500 a week. I read.
Yeah.
At the beginning of when it started out. Which compare that, like, what kind of salary would that be now? That was in '57. I
don't know how to do that.
It'd be like. That'd be a good salary, I'm sure. I'm sure $500 a week was impressive.
It wouldn't be anything like people are getting nowadays.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean...
I guess I'm curious.
Government takes a lot because there's no deductions. And then they require, social services or whoever the heck it is, requires you to put, 10, 15, 20% into U.S. bonds.
Right.
So
then you got a manager.
Yeah, and you got
10%.
An agent.
Right.
So you got, let's say you do 20% in the bonds and you do 10% in the agent, so that's 30%.
Imagine if you're me and you have a writing partner, you get to split everything 50-50 on top of it all.
Yeah.
You're like, I think in the end you get like about 8% of what your salary was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it was. So anyway,
But were you good for a while?
I had a boat for Catalina, which was my main luxury, and
you've always been a Catalina. Do you still have a place out there?
Yeah.
And so, did you buy it that far back?
Actually, this is my folks' place.
Okay.
But the place that I bought, I sold a long time ago for nothing, and now it's worth a fortune. But anyway,
I think this is interesting for people because anytime they see any kind of hit show or whatever, they have no concept as to whether it's real money or unfathomable money. They don't know is Tony Dow currently blowing his nose and used $100 bills.
Tony Dow.
But
Seinfeld is
doing that.
Yeah.
Seinfeld is doing a lot with $100 bills.
It's not like life is so bad around.
No, it's not exactly terrible here in gorgeous Topanga Canyon. You didn't necessarily need to work for a while, but you wanted to continue to work as an actor?
Yeah, I think I needed to work. What I did was I did a dumb thing. When I got my money from the bonds, it amounted to $30,000. Maybe,
yeah.
And so I bought a sailboat to live on, which I did.
Oh, to live on?
Yeah.
You really were that character.
So I bought,
You really were Chet.
Maybe. Except I can't fix the car. So anyway, I did that, and you know how boats are. You just buy high, sell low. So that's what I did, and then after that, I definitely.
How long did you live in the boat?
A couple of years.
Is that what you had to do to get away from your fans? You had to go out to sea.
Not exactly.
Leave me alone. Give me my peace.
But it was fun. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't trade it because it was, it was a great experience.
That's really cool. That's a really eclectic,
but
fun story.
Would have been nice to have that money that I had.
Right.
But then, there's a long dry period, when you can't. I was in the National Guard, and I had to cut my hair short, and the only job I got was on Adam 12, and I went in, and the guy said, well, I guess we don't have to ask him if he'll cut his hair.
Yeah. And you are not a short haircut kind of guy. As I sit here and look at you right now, you still have a full head of hair that falls off the back of your head.
Yeah.
So you've never been that guy, right?
No.
Lauren?
Just a couple of weeks ago, he played opposite Joyce DeWitt in Love Letters. Did you tell you that? In Texas, Dallas area. And at first I thought, maybe you should get your hair cut because he played a senator. No,
he's just kind of a hip to Pink Canyon kind of senator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So anyway, most of my life has been kind of struggling, between jobs, painting. I painted for a friend. I had a construction company.
When did you do that? Because I noticed you seem to have quite a few guest star shots, like in the 70s again. So when did you do the construction thing?
I think I did that. Must have
before
been.
I met you.
It was, I think it was probably late 60s.
Okay.
And early 70s.
And even though you didn't have an ego, was there anything in your psyche that was challenging going and being a regular civilian once you'd been so famous? I mean, did it feel? Do you ever feel like people looked at you like, "Oh, why are you doing construction? I thought you were on TV. We know you from TV." I
never thought about it too much. I mean, I would have probably rather been directing television or starring in something, but that wasn't what was happening. And so, it was kind of like, I'd paint, work with my friend, and we'd paint a house or a school, whatever we paint.
Sure.
And, I was getting paid by the hour. And so, the first time that I think I've ever, I was financially secure when we were doing the new Leave It To Beaver. Because we were making more money then than the original.
And that was sort of in the mid-'80s on the Disney Channel,
that's
right?
what afforded us this house.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was, and obviously you could make more money because they need you, because they're trying to revive Leave It To Beaver, so they need the essential components of Beaver, so you can get a better...
Now, if Universal could have found somebody to replace them and paid them less, they would have.
They would have.
No, what happened was I'd done a movie called High School USA, which had
it's a cult classic,
bunch of kids, and I played the principal. They did two of them.
Yes.
In the first one, I played the principal, and I would have played that in the second one, except that the Beaver thing came along.
So you show up on the Hardy Boys. You show up. I watched that this morning. YouTube was really kind to me this morning.
Really?
It was really coming up with some great stuff. I really enjoyed the Joan Rivers Show reunion, where you guys all showed up on the Joan Rivers Show.
Oh my God, I'd like to see that.
You should just YouTube Tony Dow.
Let me tell you something. Joan Rivers is a very thoughtful person. She gave each one of the cast members the most beautiful, she had this very fine photographer, the most beautiful photograph we have in the hallway.
Wow.
With a hand-written note of thanks for them being
it's
on
amazing.
her show.
She does that
cool.
with every guest. They have this room set up with perfect lighting, perfect everything. This great photographer takes a picture of the person, and she gives it.
Sends it later.
We're talking about a photograph that's like that big.
That's awesome.
Framed. I don't know if it was framed or we had it framed, but we don't really have much. I mean,
we have some comic book.
I brought a photo for that I was going to ask him to sign. That is the oldest photo in color that I can find of you, like from when you're the youngest. That's in color.
Is he wearing a red shirt?
No, it's like the picture you're at the beach.
I'll
show it to you. It's right here.
See, and you probably aren't wearing a shirt.
Sure.
Oh my God, that's a
good picture.
No, I'm just saying.
I've never seen that.
It's Catalina, and that's like somebody just happened to do a snapshot of you.
I know. Now it's on eBay. We never really discussed your amazing appearance on Circus of the Stars. We should have. You were a clown on Circus of the Stars, correct?
Yeah.
Not
a clown.
A clownish character that was trying to...
A humorous character, hopefully.
I think you described it as clown the first time. I wasn't interpreting that, but... all right, a human character that kept proving that he could do everything that they could do.
Kept trying to show them that it's all easy and I could do it. And of course, it was fun.
Because you, with an athletic background, you could do a lot of those things. Like you had background in tumbling, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I did a comedy trampoline thing, which was actually what they hired me to do.
Yeah.
But then when they realized I could do, I could walk on a wire, which we just found out because when we were practicing, I walked on a wire, and then did some trapeze. They thought, I guess somebody thought up this idea of this character who goes, telling Merv, that's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, I'm getting all these, see?
We're examining Tony's arms right now, and what are these?
I don't know.
It's like you bump into something. It's
what happens.
I just don't look.
Father got these.
I just have stuff zapped again.
I can't believe all this was in my. Oh, a quarter pounder brought you two together. Before you go,
Yep.
Lauren, a quarter pounder brought you two together.
Correct.
Care to share how? That's all I have for you.
I cast Tony in a McDonald's spot.
Uh-huh.
And it was a quarter pounder commercial.
And that's how you met. So you were casting director. It wasn't some sort of casting couch situation. It was all on the up and up.
I produced TV commercials for an advertising agency in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And had to find a 30-ish All-American guy for this McDonald's spot. And he just happened to be coming to town. And I just happened to call the theater the day he arrived. And I just happened to fall in love with him. And hopefully the same is true for Tony. So that's about it. That's the size of it, and now I'm going to leave. Goodbye.
All right. So that was nice and succinct. I can tell you really enjoyed telling that story, too.
I do, but I told
You told that one a lot? All right.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, then it may just get cut from the podcast, because I don't want anything to be derivative. What Barbara was like on set? We discussed Hugh. So I'm imagining that Hugh Beaumont didn't like hang around with the kids a lot. I mean, he obviously liked you, but he wasn't like your second father or anything.
No, he wasn't like one of the playmates on the set.
Right.
Actually, he didn't even. We had a basketball hoop, I think, and he didn't even come out and play basketball with us.
It's hard to in a suit, Tony. To be fair, in a suit and tie, it's not very comfortable.
Yeah, that's right. I should have given a little slack on that.
They at least allowed you to wear shorts off camera, right, or jeans, or were you able to dress down ever? At least to play basketball?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
No, I can wear whatever. I can wear anything I want. And of course, I wore a lot of shorts because I was at the beach all the time.
How did you get to the beach on that schedule? Like, you were into surfing then, right?
Yeah. Well, I learned to surf in Hawaii when I was about 12.
How did you make time for that with that schedule?
Well, I mean, we would shoot. We would shoot 3 days a week. We would read, and I would be finished by 1 o'clock on Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
So I had Mondays to do whatever. And then our producers wanted us to be like regular kids. So instead of doing what all the shows do now, which is take their hiatuses during summer, where the kids can work more hours, they, work during the summer and take hiatuses other times. We took our hiatus during the summer, so we could actually be kids. And so I'd go to Catalina and spend, 39 episodes probably took us somewhere around 42.
You guys were like doing double the number of episodes that shows. It's standard to do like 22 for a full season.
Yeah.
You guys were doing 39. So you did 6 seasons of 39 episodes?
Yeah.
Wow. No wonder there's so many episodes in the show.
There's 234.
Right. So that's how you found time during your summer hiatus, and you got to Catalina then. But your parents didn't actually. You had a home here, not just on the island, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The home I was brought up in.
It'd be quite a commute from Catalina to Universal.
Right. Yeah. I took my jet. I had
another perk you neglected to mention. Did I fail to mention that I took a jet? Yeah.
Well, sometime in the 76, somewhere around there, 75, 76.
Yeah.
I got an offer to do a play in Kansas City, Jerry and I together.
Okay.
So we went and did a play, and it was hugely successful. We sold out So then they extended it a couple of weeks and sold out. So anyway, that got me back into, scared me to death because it was theater and I hadn't done much theater especially since I was a lot younger.
Yeah.
And so anyway, then, we started putting together some things, and because that was such a huge success, this promoter wanted to do a national tour. So I put an ad in the Variety and got a script by Schiller and Weiskopf, who actually, if you're a sitcom guy, they did wrote a lot of All in the Families, and they created Maude.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, really funny guys. So they sent a script in, and we adapted that for dinner theater, and then we went on a 17-month tour of the country, doing 6-8 weeks in this town, and then 6-8 weeks in another town.
Was it a revival of the characters?
No, it was a play called So Long Stanley.
Okay.
Which I play a kind of a playboy who calls his roommate and tells him that he just got married and he's coming home, so the roommate has to find another place and clear out. Well, the roommate's sort of a nerd, so in the opening of the thing, he tries to kill himself about 6 different ways.
Yeah.
And fails.
Yeah.
And so the rest of the show was just this guy and his wife and this nerd who interferes with everything. So,
right. Well, that must have been fun. But it sounds like you were finally, probably at that point, so by 1976, you were more willing to embrace some of the Beaver stuff because you were willing to do a play with Jerry. Whereas I'm sure for a while there, did you have what most child actors have, where you run from it and you're trying to distance yourself from the signature show that people know you from?
I don't know. I think I probably was disinterested in capitalizing on it. Is a better way to say it, because I didn't run from it.
But you didn't, like Jerry made licensed commemorative plates,
yeah.
On the show. They've all written books. You haven't. So you're a little more reluctant, it seems like, in some ways.
Yeah, I just, I'm not, interested in capitalizing on something I did 50 years ago.
Right.
So,
which is weird. It's something that's still in people's lives on a daily basis, but to you, it's like, it's a job I had when I was a teenager. Like, do you obsess over your teenage jobs? I mean, it's to put it in kind of some kind of perspective,
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, so that we did pretty well doing that. And then the guy who was executive producer of Happy Days, cut that out.
We don't know what that was. It just sounded like a minor stroke you were having there for a second when you went silent.
The guy that was Brian Levant, who was an executive producer of Happy Days, and his partner, who was also a producer on Happy Days, came to see the show, and we were in San Clemente. And he wanted to do a movie of the week, and he wondered if we were interested in doing it. Well, I tried to put that together for 10 years. And
you doing something with Jerry for TV?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I even had Norman Tokar, who was the director of the the first year,
right,
39 episodes. So, and couldn't get anywhere. So, anyway, they came down, they saw the show, they asked us, and I said, sure, if you think you can do it, go ahead and do it. And the next thing we know, they're calling and sending a script out and saying, we got permission from Universal and this and that.
Wow.
So we did Still a Movie, which had that nasty word in it.
Yep, it did.
But
obviously trying to shake things up.
I thought it was a pretty good movie, actually.
Yeah.
It was interesting. The guy who directed it had never seen the show.
Wow.
Brian Levant wrote it, and he wanted to direct it, but he didn't have any experience at that time. And Stephen Stern, a Canadian guy who did Movie of the Weeks, good director. He'd never seen the show, and he also, his sense of humor was It's actually a lot more like mine than it was like the writers.
Right.
So he would continually take jokes out because he didn't think they were funny. So he didn't want to do a bad joke, and he wanted it to be more like a story about a family, what the story was about, without it having a sitcom feel to it.
Did he want it to have that more? Well, I guess it had been written, but it had a more realistic, updated take on the Cleavers. Like there was a little bit of not everything was perfect in it, right?
Yeah.
One of you had just gotten a divorce or something, or no?
Yeah, Jerry. Yeah.
Jerry. Yeah. So that for Cleaver fans,
yeah,
that's an interesting pickup where the story left off, because there certainly wasn't any threat of divorce back in the 50s on the original show.
No, of course not. No.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the transition from doing the dinner theater shows all around the country to doing this movie happened fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And then we were supposed to do the series, but my career sort of picked up a little bit, and I was doing, for the first time, I felt I was doing roles that were different and actually sort of good. Any TV role can be really good.
They can be good.
But like that Hardy Boys, that was one of the worst experiences because I'm an air traffic controller, and I'm standing there in this set.
Yeah.
And behind me, there's this round thing that they're going to put some sort of a radar, some sort of graphic into.
Yes.
So it was like a green screen. It's just the beginning of when they did that. So it was tough because the lighting on that had to be right and all this stuff. And the guy puts the camera so that, because nobody can be in front of the green screen because, back then you didn't want to take the time to roto on. Anyway.
Right.
So I'm standing there, and every time we do a take, and somehow, because I use my hands, my handgun was singing. And then, so I changed position and my elbow. So finally, I'm playing the scene with my hands, and I'm leaning back like this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it shows because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Oh, it's on YouTube. You can check it out later. I just watched it this morning.
Probably won't. But
probably tomorrow. Is that what you said? You've got a whole bunch of stuff to look up tomorrow.
Oh boy. But anyway, that was one of the things that really made me. And it in the TV guide, because the TV guide back then, it said Hardy Boys, and then used my name starring Tony Dow. Well, I had one lousy little scene that I'd waited all day to shoot.
Right.
And at 5 o'clock, the AD comes in and says, "Okay, we're ready to shoot. Come on." And they're breaking at 6, or they're wrapping at 6. So I had no time to do this scene, and I was in the most uncomfortable position I'd ever been in. And I thought, boy, this is really a dumb location, man. It's like, why am I doing these things? Because certainly it isn't acting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I started feeling, well, they're kind of using my name to get people to watch it.
Right.
It's always questionable. But anyway, so that was one of the first things where I started thinking, wow, this is really a drag. But then the dinner theaters, and then the thing, and then the New Beaver came up.
New Beaver, and that's how you used your clout to get to direct episodes, and then you directed sitcoms like Coach and other shows.
Yeah, I directed Harry and the Hendersons. I directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I directed Swamp Thing. I directed Cover Me, which was a terrific show. I directed.
You're really the true definition of an artist in that, like, in between shows you paint, now you sculpt. It's like you can't stop from doing something artistic. You're either on a TV show, you're directing a TV show, or you're doing art in your home, which I think is, what is that referred to, a Renaissance man or something like that?
Yeah,
I don't know how sleeping on a boat fits into that, and I don't know how
I don't know what that is.
Massage and afternoon naps fit into that, and pictures and saunas. So you do other things, but you're definitely an artist.
Well, when I was young teenager, what do you want to be when you grow up? What are you going to continue to be? I said the only thing I want to do is live a creative life, and I guess that was ingrained in me. I don't know why I said it then, because I wasn't a painter, I wasn't a sculptor, I wasn't on a TV show.
But something in you
yeah,
knew.
Something said I just want to live a creative life. And fortunately, through all the ups and downs, I've been able to kind of do that. I mean, the reason that I spend a lot of time and energy around here was when you're not working, you have a choice. You can take some crappy job somewhere, which usually, like you said, can be demeaning because people react in a weird way. Now, the deal is, my concept was, well, if I'm not working, every hour or so that I spend here has got to be worth at least $20. So, so I started improving the house.
Right.
It wasn't that great. It was a cool house, but it was laid out pretty much the way it is. But so anyway, that's kind of was the idea was that I'll spend my time, doing this stuff that's going to upgrade the house and make it worth more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but we went through a lot of periods where there was no dough in the bank, and it's like, how are you going to make a payment?
Right.
And just till recently, since I'm 67, the Medicare's great.
Yes.
And Social Security's great.
Yep.
And then I have 2 pensions, or actually I have 4 pensions, but I have a Screen Actors Guild pension.
Yep.
Which is an annuity. And then I took my Directors Guild pension, which oddly enough was much greater than any of the other ones.
Really?
And invested it. So finally, I think in the next few months, we're going to be in the black instead of running every month in the red.
Right.
That's kind of what we do, because we're trying to get this place fixed up. I have a house in Fresno because my son's up there. I have a fireman up there. And we spend a little bit of money on that. So at some point in time, if we stop spending money, we'll be able to actually live a non-stress, money-stress life.
If you stop spending $40 to have palm trees removed, they don't need to be removed.
I know, that's...
Well, I think $40, fortunately, I don't know. I'd imagine a tree removal would be a lot more than $40.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I mean, maybe you'll show me something. So maybe this isn't the end. Maybe you got something to show me around the property. I don't know. Is there anything I need to see?
Well, you can see it.
All right. Well, maybe. Well, here it is. Great. While he does that, do you want to talk to me? Oh,
no, I just wanted to say that I am one of the luckiest people in the world.
Oh.
Why?
Because of you.
Oh, because of me.
Because you're the most wonderful person that I could ever think of to have
You're prejudiced.
in my life.
It's a nice thing. I feel like I should take a picture.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you're backlit, so it's not going to be... Oh, except you're super fuzzy. Hang on.
Great.
Super fuzzy.
Bougie showed up. She's super fuzzy. Bougie super fuzzy.
Okay, now it's better. Ready? 3, 2, 1.